I have to tell you that after a very careful review of all the arguments that were made for people on both sides of this equation, I came to a place where I believe that under the law, resentencing is appropriate, and I am going to recommend that to a court tomorrow.
All right, so you guys sent in a bunch of articles about the Menendez brothers.
Yeah.
And it seems like we just can't get enough of this story, right? It's been decades.
Decades.
But now there's this talk about them getting resentenced.
It's wild, right?
So let's do a deep dive. Back in 1989,
Okay.
Lyle and Eric Menendez,
Uh-huh.
they were convicted of killing their parents,
Right.
Jose and Kitty, in Beverly Hills. Brutal scene.
Yeah.
But from the beginning, they claimed self-defense.
Abuse. Yeah, their whole defense was built around
Years of abuse.
years of alleged abuse from their father.
Right, and that's what makes this case so fascinating.
Uncle Kate did, yeah.
It's not just an open and shut murder case.
No.
So the first trial,
Oh, yeah?
it ended with a hung jury.
Can you believe that?
I-
A hung jury?
I know, but then in the second trial,
Well, in the second trial,
they were convicted.
they were convicted and sentenced to life without parole.
And part of that was because they couldn't present all the details about the abuse.
Some of the evidence was excluded.
Yeah, so that's been a point of contention ever since.
Big time. Big time.
But now, fast forward to today.
Yes.
The L.A. District Attorney, George Gascon,
Gascon, yeah.
he's recommending they get resentenced.
Big news.
That's a major turn of events.
Huge.
So what's Gascon's reasoning here?
Well, he says that
I mean, this is a big deal.
it is. It is. So he's saying these guys, they've shown real rehabilitation in prison.
Right.
They were young when the crimes happened, 18 and 21.
That is young.
And the biggest thing, he's really leaning on the alleged abuse. You know, like they suffered to the point where he's saying he thinks they've paid their debt to society.
Whoa, that's a loaded statement.
Oh, it sparks so much debate. Can you imagine?
It really makes you think about, like,
Right.
what does it even mean to pay your debt when something this horrific has happened?
Right. Like, are some crimes just unforgivable no matter what?
Exactly. But Gascon's also saying there's new evidence. So what's that all about?
This is where it gets really interesting, right?
Lay it on me.
So, there's this letter. Eric wrote it to his cousin back in '88,
Oh, for the murders.
the year before. And he kind of hints at, the abuse going on.
Interesting. So it supports their story.
It does. And then there's this testimony
Okay.
from Roy Rosello. He was in Menudo.
Wait, Menudo, the boy band? What?
Yeah, Jose Menendez. He was like a big-time music exec.
Right. Yeah.
And Rosello, he was 14 at the time. He claims that Jose Menendez
Oh, no.
sexually assaulted him. This is in a documentary that came out recently.
So this is totally new information.
Brand new. It wasn't part of the original trials.
Wow, that adds a whole new layer to the abuse narrative.
Huge.
Okay, so we've got new evidence,
Uh-huh.
a DA pushing for resentencing,
Mhm.
original convictions based on abuse claims.
It's a lot.
So how does this all work legally?
All right, so to understand all the legal stuff, we got to talk about mitigating factors. It's a legal term.
Okay, break it down for me.
Basically, it's like, are there things that make a crime, a little less severe in the eyes of the law?
Right.
Things that might make a jury go, well, it's still bad, but
So in this case, the brothers' ages at the time and the abuse.
bingo. That's what they're arguing. David P. Shapiro,
What's that?
he's a criminal defense lawyer. He's saying all of this, the mitigating factors, the new evidence, it's a strong argument for reducing their sentences.
Makes sense. So lighter sentences.
Uh-huh. But get this.
What?
He's saying their charges could even be lowered to manslaughter.
Whoa, hold on. Manslaughter? That's a whole different ballgame.
Huge difference.
Explain that to me like I'm 5.
Okay, so murder usually means it was planned out, intentional.
Got it.
Manslaughter, it's more like something happened in the heat of the moment, no premeditation, maybe a reaction to something.
So like if the abuse claims are legit and the
Yeah.
brothers just snap,
Right, like it was a direct response to years of trauma.
then it could be manslaughter.
That's the argument Shapiro's making.
Wow. So does that mean if the charges are lowered, they just walk free?
Not so fast.
Okay, so there's more.
Way more. Even if they get manslaughter, they'd be eligible for parole. But that doesn't mean they automatically get out.
The parole board still has to decide.
Exactly.
So Gaston's recommendation is just the first step.
It kicks off a whole process. He files a motion, then a judge reviews everything, listens to both sides,
Mhm.
and then, even if the judge agrees to resentence them,
It goes to the parole board.
Yep, they have the final say.
So it's not as simple as, like,
Yeah.
Gascon says go and they're free.
Nope, it's a long road.
But it's not just about the law either, is it?
What do you mean?
This case, it's always been a media circus.
Oh, yeah.
Public opinion plays a huge role in these kinds of cases.
Absolutely.
People get really invested.
For sure.
So we've got the legal side of things, but then there's the whole court of public opinion.
Two different trials going on, almost.
It's true. And speaking of public opinion, there's one person who's added a whole other dimension to this case. Kim Kardashian.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Now that's a twist I wasn't expecting.
She's become a big advocate for the Menendez brothers.
Yeah.
He's visited them in prison, written essays, the whole 9 yards. She thinks they deserve a reduced sentence, that they've done their time.
Wow. I mean, Kim K, that's some serious star power.
It's brought so much attention to the case.
It's like their story is tapping into something bigger.
What do you mean?
Like how we view justice, second chances, especially when it comes to family, abuse, all of that.
Right, like when is forgiveness possible, even after a terrible crime?
Exactly. So we've got new evidence, shifting legal arguments, passionate public opinions.
It's a lot.
And now Kim Kardashian's in the mix.
The plot thickens.
So how do we even begin to unpack all of this?
Well, to figure out what might happen next, we got to look closer at how this resentencing process actually works.
Okay, let's do it.
And what legal hurdles the Menendez brothers might face. Buckle up.
This is gonna be good.
It is. Okay, so let's walk through it.
All right, walk me through it.
So Gascon, he files his formal motion, right? Recommending that the life sentences, they're lifted. Then it goes to a judge.
Los Angeles Superior Court, right?
Yep, LA Superior Court. The judge looks at the whole case again.
All the evidence, the arguments.
Everything, both sides. And then they decide, okay, are we going to resentence these guys?
So even if the judge says yes, they don't just walk out.
Not even close. Parole board, that's another whole hurdle.
Right, the parole board has the final say.
They do. And remember, this case, it's always been controversial. There are people who really disagree with this whole resentencing thing.
Even within the DA's office, right?
Yeah, it's divided. So it's definitely not going to be easy.
This is making my head spin. Like, what's the point of punishment anyway?
Whoa, big question.
Is it just about getting revenge? An eye for an eye?
That's one way to look at it.
Or is it about giving people a chance to change, to rehabilitate?
Well, that's the debate, isn't it?
Like, what does justice really mean?
In this case, it's like a snapshot of how we think about justice now as a society. Back in the day, it was all about tough sentences, making people pay. But now, there's this shift.
Towards rehabilitation.
Exactly. Second chances. But it's not easy, you know?
Especially with a case this high profile.
Oh, for sure. And you got to think about, like, the media, documentaries, even podcasts like ours.
Social media is blowing up about this case.
It all adds to the conversation, right? Like, we're all part of this giant jury now trying to make sense of it.
And with the Menendez case, there's no easy answers.
It's messy. Family, abuse, a broken system. It makes you think.
You said family, and it's interesting, even within the Menendez family, there's this split about whether the brothers should be released.
Yeah, like some family members support them. They're writing letters and stuff.
But others want them to stay locked up.
It shows how deep the scars run.
And it's a reminder, this crime, it didn't just impact Lyle and Eric.
It shattered a whole family.
Totally. And we can't forget the media frenzy around all this.
The Menendez brothers. They were on every channel.
Front page news.
And it's still going strong.
Headlines, documentaries.
Even that Ryan Murphy show.
Oh, yeah. Monsters. The Lyle and Eric Menendez story. I watched that one.
Me too. It definitely brought up those details about the abuse that were left out of the trials.
Exposed it to a whole new audience.
And it makes you wonder, you know, if all of this media attention, if it's helping their case.
Shifting public opinion.
Exactly. Oh, and speaking of the show, did you hear about Cooper Koch?
The actor who played Eric. What about him?
He said he doesn't want to play Eric again.
Really? Even if they get released?
Nope. He feels like they told the story, and now he's ready to move on.
Huh. Interesting. Makes you think about what life would be like for the brothers if they do get out.
After all this time.
Decades in prison, then suddenly freedom.
Can you imagine? Like, how do you even adjust to that?
Would they try to disappear, stay out of the spotlight?
Maybe. Or maybe they'd become like advocates for prison reform.
Use their platform.
Yeah. Who knows? But it raises so many questions.
This whole case, it's like the more we talk about it,
The more questions we have.
it feels like we're barely scratching the surface.
Yeah, and that's what's so compelling about it. It's not just about these two brothers. It's about us, about how we see justice, accountability, redemption, all the big stuff.
It's crazy to think, right? Like, they could actually go free.
After all this time.
I mean, what would that even look like?
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? Going from maximum security
It's just, like, normal life.
Right. Think about it. The support they'd need, the therapy, the public eye on them constantly. It'd be a huge adjustment.
And wouldn't there be, like, a whole parole process?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The parole board, they don't just let anyone out.
So what happens
They
then?
look at everything, how they behaved in prison. Did they do any programs? What are their plans for the future? Are they a danger to society?
It's a lot to consider.
It is. And the parole board, they can set all these rules.
Like what?
Like they have to go to counseling or check in regularly.
Makes sense. You know, this whole deep dive,
Yeah.
it's really made me think about justice. Like, what does it really mean? Is it about punishment? Or is it about giving people a chance to change, even after doing something awful?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
I'm still wrestling with it, honestly.
In this case, it just throws everything into the spotlight. It makes you question your own beliefs.
It does. And it shows you that justice, it's not just this black and white thing.
No, it's constantly evolving.
Our views change over time.
Exactly. What was considered justice 30 years ago might be totally different now.
And this Menendez case, it's like a perfect example of that.
It really is a reflection of how we're thinking about these issues as a society. Crime, punishment, forgiveness.
Yeah.
It's all up for debate.
It makes it so fascinating to talk about.
And so challenging. Because there are real people involved.
Right. It's not just some theoretical debate.
Exactly. This is about the Menendez brothers, their family, the victims' families. Their lives were forever changed by this.
I know we've been focusing a lot on Lyle and Eric,
Yeah.
but we can't forget about their parents, Jose and Kitty. 2 people lost their lives.
It's important to remember that.
No matter what you think about the brothers, that loss is real.
Absolutely. And it's something we need to acknowledge. The impact on their loved ones, it's immense.
So much pain surrounding this whole story.
So much.
Well, deep divers, I think we've covered a lot today.
We've gone deep
From those murders back in 1989.
to the possibility of freedom.
It's been a wild ride. And it's not over yet.
No, there's still a long way to go. Legal battles, difficult decisions. But no matter what happens,
This case will keep people talking.
it's a story that stays with you.
If you're as intrigued by this case as we are,
Keep digging.
there's so much more to learn. Books, documentaries, articles. But as you do, think about that big question we keep coming back to. What is justice? How do we balance holding people accountable?
With the possibility of second chances.
It's a question that deserves our attention.
For
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those conversations flowing.